life of a spy isn't as glamorous as I thought. But it isn't dull.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to another edition of Tuesdays with Story. Good to be back with everybody once again. My name is Daniel Parker, and I am the writer and creator of the comic book that you just saw the trailer for. Of course, Angels Awakening, which is currently still on Indiegogo, in demand on Indiegogo, fully funded.
So you know it's going to happen?
Yes, and but that also means you still have time to pick up a copy of this book if you haven't already. You do not want to miss out on this. The writer's obviously very, very, very talented, as well as the artist.
And he's so modest too.
Yes. But yes, and also amazing artwork by Bogdan Rozea. So yeah, go pick this book up if you haven't already. And of course, joining me as always is my
Cringer, his fearless friend.
Yes, Cringer.
All right, this is Darth Bobcat, right under the pen name of DB Fastbinder, and I actually, for once, don't have a book to sell. I have a book to give.
Yes. Well, I don't have that open, but I have this book here, but yeah.
Here.
Confessions of the Magpie Wizard.
Yes, getting close to 20 ratings on there. Which at that point I start being able to do interesting things with different advertising sources.
Yeah. So let me get the other book up here.
Yep. Right. So coming up here is I'm currently doing a free book promotion for Second Contact, which will end on Thursday night. And right now it's just totally free. Try it out. It's funny. It's like $1.29 is nothing. Well, if you actually sell nothing, or if you actually price it at nothing, boom! Suddenly, I've tripled the number of. I've quadrupled the number of books I ever had anybody pick up.
Yeah, and come on, where is it? You bastards! Why aren't you putting Darth Bobcat's book in the top of the search results? You bastards!
Look, to be fair, Second Contact is a more generic name. If you go to the last one you had up and just click on the author name, you should be able to just pull up my page.
Okay.
So,
yes.
So while he pulls that up, so tonight, so if anybody from either my Discord or my Patreon or my Reddit shows up, I did offer to do an Ask Me Anything today about Magpie Wizard Book 3 in honor of that now being complete on Patreon. I don't know that I've had any takers, but if anybody happens to straggle in and ask a question, we'll drop whatever we're doing and answer them at that point.
Yes.
So I'll take that to mean that the book stood on its own.
Yeah. So, all right. Here we go. There we go. Here it is.
Yep. So, Second Contact, a Checkpoint Alpha story, is currently 100% gratis on Kindle.
Can't get any better than that.
No, I refuse to pay people to look at my book.
Yeah.
I asked my accountants to look over it. It's just not a good return on investment.
Yeah. All right. Well, yeah. So links to Angel's Awakening, Magpie Wizard, and Second Contact are in the description below. And if this will pop off, there we go. And
He's suffering from success. He just upgraded to Streamlab Pro or Streamlab Paid or whatever it's called.
Paid, yeah, Streamlab Pro. Yeah, so I'm a little, yeah. But of course, if you can't tell what we're, yes. So what we're saying is,
buy my book, buy my book, buy my book.
Or in my case, take my book. Take my book.
Yeah. All right. So yeah. So people who are watching the stream have watched this before. Yes, I upgraded to StreamYard Pro. So nice, cool background with Jessica right behind us, and my company logo in the corner.
Very nice. Very nice.
Yeah. So so for the topic for today is something that may not be what you all think. We're going to mention a certain new television series that is on Netflix, but we're not going to get into any of the drama or the,
Right. I heard something about Kevin Smith fighting with a fish on Twitter. And then accusations being thrown around, and then woke white supremacists review bombed the show, maybe.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah, whatever.
So we are not here to talk about Masters of the Universe, the TV show. I haven't seen it. Daniel hasn't seen it.
And that's only half the story. We don't plan on seeing. We don't plan on watching it.
Right. We were just talking before the stream started. Neither of us has any significant relationship or fondness for He-Man.
Right.
I think of He-Man as, when I was on an 80s cartoon kick, I said, I should try He-Man. And it was the one I gave up on after 10 minutes of the animation.
Yes. And I kind of had the same experience trying to watch it when I was a kid. I'm like, no, this is just not working for me.
Right. We're about the same age, I think. So you were probably too used to like cartoons with animation budgets like X-Men and Batman the Animated Series.
Yes, exactly. So yeah, like I was saying, we're talking before the stream, but the rotoscoping-esque animation on that show was just not doing it for me.
Yep.
Yeah.
There's also another 80s nostalgia one. Like, man, it was a bad week for 80s nostalgia fanboys, because there's also the Snake Eyes movie based incredibly loosely on the G.I. Joe property.
Yes.
And what I took away from it wasn't the usual, which I tend to agree with, that Hollywood is out of ideas, they don't know what to do with anything, that they aren't even making things for the fanboys anymore. They're just taking a property and just doing whatever they feel like with it.
Yep, and then just completely eviscerating the character, eviscerating the franchise, until it's a shell of its former self. When you make a movie with a beloved G.I. Joe character in Snake Eyes. I will say I did like G.I. Joe. But I wasn't really into Snake Eyes. But I understand the appeal of Snake Eyes. But you take a character like that, who you never see his face, and he doesn't talk, and you make a movie about him where you see his face the whole time and he's talking.
Right. And it's like with The Mandalorian. Like, I understand no actor at the height of his career is going to want a role where you never actually see his face or hear him speak much.
Yeah.
On the flip side, you signed up for that part.
Yeah. And I'll give you okay. I'll give you. There's one actor that I will say is not so egotistical that he needs to see that he had to have his face on screen, and that was Carl Urban in Dredd.
Yes, props to Carl Urban.
Yeah, He left the helmet on the whole time because in Judge Dredd, he never takes his helmet off.
Unless you're Sylvester Stallone, who proves the point where he's egotistical and you have to hear his voice and see his face and everything.
Yeah.
And he has to be a good guy.
Yeah.
Unambiguous good guy.
Yes. Yeah. Oh God, that was an awful movie.
Anyway, so we're not here as much as we're talking about that. We're not actually here to talk about that.
Right, exactly. Yeah.
It's just so easy to slip into. You can see how
Yeah.
whole channels could build their careers around it.
Yeah, because it's fun to talk about.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I think the main focus of this stream is to just kind of look at these different characters, and then we realize, obviously, like Bobcat and I were talking about this beforehand, but the response to the response to the response to everything going on with He-Man has been just fascinating to watch.
Yes, so I expected more of a response to the Ask Me Anything request. So I hadn't actually, we hadn't actually put any real effort into coming up with a topic for the week.
All right.
And then Sunday, I go to the gym and I'm listening to the Midnight's Edge podcast about their general response to that He-Man show. And I couldn't listen to too much of it because they eventually got too much into the histrionics because they were so invested in He-Man.
Yeah.
Just like, which, for people who are 10 years older than me is like, oh, okay.
Yeah. And yeah, Tom was especially upset with it. Yeah.
Yeah. And, but there were two stories there that just struck me as, again, crudely animated, on the nose morality, not a very smart universe, but this thing just meant the world to them because of when and how it hit them.
Yeah.
So, what's the name guy from Midnight's Edge? Is it Andre, the Norwegian guy?
Yes, Andre.
Yeah. So Andre was telling the story about when he was a young man. It was like he said he was part of the last generation of Norway when it was kind of almost a Soviet satellite because the government was very pro-Soviet and didn't like to bring in Western culture. And they were the opinion that, oh, well, we want to give you education and entertainment that'll make you good socialists. And somehow He-Man slipped in under the radar. Or was like the first thing to open things up.
Yeah.
And just, it blew his mind as a kid. Because you imagine you're watching a bunch of government-produced shows that are there to teach you about, pick up litter, look both ways, that type of thing. And suddenly you have this, like, I'll give it this. He-Man is wildly imaginative.
Yes.
It is designed to hit a 6-year-old boy right in the brain and just burrow in there and make them go, oh my God, imagination is just firing on all cylinders.
Yeah. Yeah. And you get a character like He-Man, the most powerful man in the universe. I mean, you've got a recipe for just a boyhood fantasy right there.
Right, because when you're 6, you want to beat up all the things and be the strongest and the biggest and the best and everything. And here's this blonde guy who looks kind of like a knockoff Conan, because he was a knockoff Conan at first. Just doing all that.
Yeah.
And like that was his. And this is a guy who now makes a career out of owning a channel that's pretty much 100% pop culture reviews and commentary. That was his introduction to genre fiction.
Yeah.
The other one was, I can't remember the guy's name, but he was a Mexican immigrant or son of an immigrant who grew up in poor housing. And the way he put it is that, growing up in the neighborhood or in the apartment building he was in, it wasn't a good apartment building, but, like he had a few He-Man figures and his friends had a couple other He-Man figures, and him and all of the kids could get together and reenact the show. And that was like, that transcended race and culture, and it let them get out of their awful lives for a little bit to just get together and play He-Man toys together.
Yeah.
Now I'm used to like thinking about that with things that I consider good, like a good Spider-Man comic or X-Men or things like that.
Yeah. Yeah. And I, with me, I grew up watching, obviously the animated stuff like X-Men and Batman, and then, but I also had, I had Star Trek, I had Star Wars, and I grew up with James T. Kirk and Spock and Picard and with the Next Generation and all the in Data and all those characters, and then obviously all the subsequent Star Treks thereafter. Well, up until everything after Enterprise. Well, nothing after Enterprise, but
Right, what are you talking about? They stopped making Star Trek after Enterprise for some reason. It's it's funny they haven't tried to revive Star Trek since then.
yeah. It's very, very interesting.
Maybe somebody should get them on making a Star Trek series of movies, kind of in the style of the original.
Yeah. Not try to make Star Trek into Star Wars, but
That would be stupid.
yeah. But when I was this is maybe a slight personal story for me, but I mean when I was a kid, and growing up, I mean I was as you would all expect, I was a big geek, like as I'm sure Bobcat probably was too.
Yes.
Yeah, and so and as such, and when I was growing up, being a geek, being a nerd, wasn't cool. Like you were on the outside, and somebody like me who liked Star Trek, and liked that stuff, I really didn't. There weren't very many like-minded people, that liked that same stuff, and Star Trek was a source of comfort for me when I was a kid. If I had a bad day at school or something was, bothering me or whatever, I go into, our very vast library of Star Trek VHS tapes, and I'd pop an episode in and watch it.
Yep, and what just in that story and the other stories I heard with people, to hear them talk about it, and I don't care about spoilers for a show I haven't seen.
Yeah.
My spoilers may not even be accurate, but killing He-Man twice in one show, to hear so many people talk about it, it's like that you killed their favorite uncle or even their parents.
Yeah. As I said before, and I will say it again, Kevin Smith lied. He-Man died twice.
Yeah. Now it sounds like it sounds like that he'll probably come back in the second half of the show, but that's the problem with making a cliffhanger when you the trailer basically set the expectations that it was a He-Man centric show.
Right.
Even if you actually read the summaries, it was more honest, but that's not how they marketed it.
Right. Yeah.
But I guess the overall lesson I took away was just how much the right story at the right time can mean to somebody.
Yeah. It can inspire people, to that's why I know Mike has talked about this before, and I've heard a lot of other people say that's why we need heroes, in fiction, because it inspires us to be more than what we are, and it gives us for a lot of people that's where their morality comes from.
Right, and it's because they see what somebody who they admire does in a bad situation.
Yeah, and you talk about a lot of and if I remember the original He-Man right, there was a lot of morality stuff in that show. A lot of morality stuff in there.
Right. But at the time, there were actually, I don't know if every cartoon was required to have this or if they were just required to have it because they were basically huge toy commercials. So it's like, okay, we got to offset the damage somehow.
Right. Yeah. So they put G.I. Joe would do that too with their knowing is half the battle PSAs.
Right. And so He-Man would do the same thing with just a character kind of spelling out, hey, little Susie caused a lot of trouble when she lied to her parents about that and made a lot of trouble for good old He-Man. Now, he got out of it okay, but when you lie, you're just making future trouble for yourselves, and He-Man might not be there to help you out.
Yeah.
I saw a few, of course, with people saying, Kevin Smith lied. People were having fun with that in their videos, of clips like that.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
People definitely got creative with it.
Yeah. And I think that that's a mistake that a lot of creators, and this is something that I'm cognizant of, is when you have a character to that people are going to start to like. You kind of have to be aware of what you do with them in terms of the path that the journey that they take, because if you do something that's like contrary to who they are, it's not going to go over very well with your readers or your viewers, depending on what medium you're writing in.
Mm-hmm. Right. It's and part of what sparked this topic in my head was I just finished writing my most recent Magpie Wizard book. It ends on a bittersweet note.
Mm-hmm.
I was expecting just a massive wave of Patreon deletions and stuff like that. No, I got a lot of positive responses to it. And it's because that's what the story was. I didn't bait and switch.
Right.
I set up that this was a likely consequence for about a year now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and
I say vaguely to avoid spoilers.
Right. Yeah. And that's part of it too, is you don't want to everything that Kevin Smith has been doing with He-Man is like is a lesson in what not to do, as a creator. Like, you don't, first of all, don't get into online beefs with YouTubers. Don't
Right.
don't insult your fans. Don't lie to them, and stay in. And if you're going to work in a pre-existing property, work with a pre-existing property, stay true to that, to the fundamentals of that property and to the fundamentals of who the characters are. It's really not that difficult.
Right. Like, I think it's kind of clear that this was kind of a paycheck for Kevin, which I don't begrudge anybody for taking a paycheck.
No,
What I can begrudge is, and I almost call it like the fan fiction instinct.
Mm-hmm.
Like, there's like a couple different ways you can approach a fanfic, and I did them all back in my fanfic days. There's either the I am so much better than this show, so I'm going to take the piss out of it attitude.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, this was stupid. I'm going to mystery science theater this in a fanfic form.
Mm-hmm.
Or you can be like, well, I really like this show, and I want to basically write what could be an episode of the show.
And yeah, sorry, God.
Oh, and then of course there's shipping, but that's neither here nor there.
Yeah.
It could technically fall into either category.
Right. Yeah. But yeah, I mean, of course, in that instance, the first one there is always very tempting to do.
Oh yeah, because who doesn't like to feel like they're smarter than the original author?
Yeah. Who doesn't want to think that they're smarter than Gene Roddenberry or George Lucas or Bob Kane or Stan Lee or yeah.
Right. It's very easy to be flippant.
Yeah.
Like, it sure is impossible that a guy could get bitten by a spider. Oh, there was a comic book that they released a few years, like about 10, 15 years ago. I cannot remember the name of it now, but it was basically like this Marvel comic. Like, what if there were realistic consequences for all these things? It's like Peter had gotten bitten by the spider and was dying of cancer. Wolverine had metal injected into his bones and he was dying of metal poisoning. It was like the Fantastic Four had been to space and died or were horribly irradiated. It's like, okay, you're very correct. Radiation kills people.
Mhm. Yeah, it's like that Family Guy episode where the family gets exposed to radiation, they all get superpowers, and then Mayor Adam West decides to throw himself into nuclear waste, and then he gets cancer.
Yeah. So it's like, yeah, just yes, author, you are correct. The Marvel universe is fundamentally silly. Why are you taking their paychecks again?
Yeah,
The big question is, editor, why did you why did you accept his pitch?
yeah. Cool. Well, and you could and obviously bring it back to He-Man. It's the same thing. Like the universe of He-Man is in many ways very farcical. It's just you've got a Castle Grayskull, and that's with all this magic that it's the magic seems to work in how the plot needs it to work, and and you got the Sword of Grayskull and turns a very what's the word I'm looking for with Prince Adam.
Defeat.
What's that?
Defeat.
Yeah, and turns him into a burly He-Man.
Yep. And he just goes off there and fights ridiculous fights with ridiculous monsters. Like,
yes. Yeah.
Oh, don't I feel special? Aren't I superior? Kevin, like, if you're going to take that attitude, I'm sure Robot Chicken would let you write some sketches. Because that's like the Robot Chicken attitude right there.
Yeah, exactly.
It's a bit harder to go, this might not be my thing, but you have to have like a little bit of empathy and go, this might be somebody else's thing.
Yeah. Yeah. And so it's but again, it's you have to, be somewhat aware of the fact that, when you create a character that people love and you just completely completely emasculate the guy, and make him a side character in essentially his own show, which is what they did to Jean-Luc Picard in Star Trek Picard,
and what they did to Luke Skywalker.
And even though I haven't watched it yet, but apparently that's what they did to Loki in his show. They did the same thing to him, turned him into a side character in his own show.
What are you talking about? The Marvel Cinematic Universe ended at Endgame.
Oh,
that's
right.
That's why it was called Endgame.
That's right. Right. Of course, I forgot. Yes,
you might have seen some rumors about a Loki show, but they wouldn't be stupid enough to make that.
Yeah, just like they wouldn't be dumb enough to make a Wanda, a show with Wanda Maximoff and bringing Vision back to life, and or a woke political morality tale with Falcon and Winter Soldier.
Man, I'm glad they ended the Marvel Universe. That all sounds boring at best.
Yes, and listening to Falcon / Captain America lecturing politicians and say, I don't know what to. I don't have the answers, but you need to do better.
That sounds like the most helpful advice that anybody's ever gotten.
Yeah, just do better. Kevin Smith, do better.
And you can do bad ideas. This isn't saying you don't try anything different. It's like you just and there's bad ideas that don't fundamentally destroy the character. Like and this is going to be this is an example I've only heard of secondhand. So if I get some details wrong, it's because I only know of it secondhand. This is my secondhand disclaimer. You can't see me by waving my first and second hands in the air to show it's secondhand. But apparently at some point in the 50s, the makers of Dick Tracy, the gumshoe who fought the ridiculous monsters that you could argue that Batman was kind of a ripoff of in some ways.
Right.
They decided that that Dick needed a girlfriend from the moon with a flying car. And I think she was the Princess of the Moon from what I read. And no, not Sailor Moon, just a 50s space girl.
Yeah.
And they were either married or engaged or dating or something, and the fans hated this character because you're not reading Dick Tracy for that, but he stuck with this plotline for years.
Oh wow. Well, maybe if Warren Beatty had used that in his movie version of Dick Tracy, it would have been a little better.
It couldn't have hurt.
No.
But like, does Dick Tracy dating Sailor Moon? Okay, that actually she's 14.
No.
Never mind. Does Dick Tracy dating a moon princess is that fundamentally opposed to what the character is about? I realize I meant that as a rhetorical question, but I could see cases for either side.
Yeah, I mean, there's no reason he shouldn't be romantically involved with a moon princess, but I can't think of any reasons why he would.
Right. I mean, to be fair, it was a 50s comic strip, so we couldn't see the booty, so we don't know what she she looks like.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
But anyway, but I guess what I was really getting at was, like, it's a kind of a dumb idea that's out of left field, but you could totally tell that story, then set it aside 2 years later and just pretend it never happened.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, oh, I have to go back to my moon, and I'm sorry, my dear, it just isn't working out. Bye. And she, my home moon needs me. The moon girl died on her way back to the moon.
Yes.
And you could just pretend that never happened.
Yeah. And if you mention it, you will be you will be punished under penalty of torture.
Yes. So it's like you can do things like that, but then there are things like Spider-Man's One More Day. Like, I hear that you had the same response that I did. I was enough of a blind Spider-Man fanboy that I kept reading for a while after that, and I was like, okay, I'll take this premise and see where you go with it. And I thought there were good storylines in that era.
Mm-hmm.
But it took me a while to have it sink in. Oh, Spider-Man did a deal with the actual factual devil of the Marvel Universe. And now he and Mary Jane were never married. So all those stories that were great with them being married either didn't happen or they're weirdly contradicted.
Yes.
Oh, God.
Yeah.
And it finally caught up with me a couple years later.
Yeah.
Incidentally, I fully believe that Marvel makes up their letter columns sometimes, because I remember I was reading a couple of issues right after that, and there was one with a letter from, like, well, I'm a minister, and I think this story is perfectly fine. It's like, on the one hand, I could see somebody writing that in. On the other hand, this was like 2 months after the event. Why do I suspect that minister may have been named Dan Slott? Or Joe Quesada.
Yeah. It's entirely possible. Yeah.
It's like you can kill a character. You can absolutely kill a character.
But it has to be, you have to do it right. You can't do it like, okay, I'll use Star Trek as an example. Tasha Yar in the first season of Next Generation, how they killed her off. Like,
it was like a giant pool of tar with a Brooklyn accent.
Yeah. Just or who's another? There was another character. Can't remember.
Well, they kind of didn't treat Kirk very well in his first appearance with Picard, and only appearance with Picard.
Yeah. That. Boy, oh yeah, you talk about ticking the fans off. That ticked a lot of people off. And not only that, but like that wasn't how he was originally supposed to die.
Yeah, he just kind of fell off a cliff, right?
Well, he falls in the originally he was shot in the back, and then when they went back and reshot it, that's when he falls off the cliff.
It occurs to me that Spock got to go do a heroic thing. Kirk just lost.
Yeah. Yeah, it was not a they didn't think that out very well at all, and
No.
but,
No, sir, they did not.
no, and that's another character that I think a lot of people, I think the people running Star Trek at that time had no idea how beloved Kirk was. Well, I think they did, but
Maybe they figured that Star Trek V would make it easier to write him off that way.
oh yeah. Well, I mean, they killed Spock off only to bring him back in the next movie.
Right.
Know. But yeah. So before it was so the other part of this stream that Bobcat, of course, had me watch. Well, at least the first, I would say the first episode anyway of Rising of the Shield Hero, which I've been meaning to watch it, but I hadn't had the chance yet. So this gave me a good excuse to watch it. And even though I knew what happened, it still ticked me off.
Yeah, Shield Hero is one that I really enjoyed at the time. And then it just kind of struck me a few months back while I was talking about it with a friend, just why it means so much to people.
Mm-hmm.
It's like He-Man means a lot to people because it's a positive universe. Good always triumphs. Evil is an easily identifiable form that's kind of silly. So you can be kind of like nobody's really afraid of Skeletor,
right?
Even though objectively he should be terrifying. He's a muscle-bound guy with a skull for a head.
Yeah, and you
that voice,
He-Man. Yeah, and then and you could say that with GI Joe and Cobra Commander. You're supposed to be afraid of Cobra Commander because he always has like either that the hood that resembles a certain group of people that I will not name.
People who are not okay. Yes.
No, they are not. Or that that I like the helmet better with the
yeah, I agree.
Yeah, that one was cool, and he sounds like a snake, but then he'll say something that's just like totally comical.
Morons! I have morons on my payroll.
Yes,
and I can never say that line without shaking my fist.
Yeah, but yeah, that's again, Cobra is GI Joe always beats Cobra, with zero casualties on either side, but in the case of Shield Hero, I mean, you have the lead guy is this isekai where this kid is brought into this fantasy world, which is kind of closely resembles an RPG, and he has a young lady accuse him of doing something very, very horrible, in which he didn't do.
Bad touching, yes.
And so now he's kind of like off on his own, and he's basically wandering around trying to make ends meet. It's one of those shows like even after watching the first episode, I'm going, okay, I need to watch the rest of this. I need to see what happens to this kid, and I need to see how's he going to get back at this chick for what she did to him.
Right. So like if He-Man is like the positive, this relates to me, I can escape here.
Mm-hmm.
Shield Hero is a very different sort of escape, because Shield Hero's life I realized it's so easy to apply, because I think everybody, no matter who you are, has been in a situation where you just get stuck in something and you can't see a way out.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Maybe it's nothing you did wrong. You just came into it and people responded to you badly, because there are just some people you do not click with.
Mm-hmm.
This can be at work, this can be at school, this can be in your romantic life, this can be meeting your significant other's family. Just they will never accept you or take you seriously.
Mm-hmm.
And they will always assume the worst of you. And that's the thing about Shield Hero. And what I find interesting about Shield Hero is that this is I would take it to be very much a lot of guys' experience at some point. But the series was written by a woman. So it's that's I would call it a very male experience, the way it's presented.
Yeah.
And it's just when you get into that state, and I don't want to say too much, but basically now Fumi, the Shield Hero, it's his powers, he can't do much to start with. He is 100% defense.
Mm-hmm.
He was fighting basically the slimes from Dragon Quest. He could punch them and do 1 damage, 1 damage, 1 damage. Well, they could bite him all day and night, and he wouldn't feel anything. But
yeah.
He could not level up worth a damn.
Right.
And
And he can't use any other weapons either, because that was when he's in there trying to buy a sword, and he picks the sword up, and it shocks him.
Incompatible weapon.
Yeah.
Right. So it's he's stuck. He's stuck with this. He's stuck with what seems like the sucky power. No friends. Everyone else gets the typical isekai harem of waifus, especially the spear hero.
Yeah, that guy's an asshole.
Yes, he is. Yeah. Oh, I'll tell you, it is satisfying when certain things happen later on in that series.
All right.
And this isn't. I think this is resolved in episode 2. So I'll say that. And he realizes he needs friends, but he can't trust anybody anymore. So he has to buy slaves to be his friend, to be his party mates to help him fight. That isn't too huge of a spoiler if you know who Raftalia is, but that's
Yeah. Well, that was at the end of the. That's at the end of the second. Yeah.
Okay, I forgot how I forgot how the 2 episodes worked out. So I was half right. It was at the end of what would be the second episode, but it was basically the double parter first episode.
Right. Yeah. That's at the end of the first episode, like you said, is double parter, and he's in there with all the different slave beasts, and that's when he sees
Raftalia.
Thank you.
It's a weird fantasy name.
Yeah. Is she a chipmunk?
She's well, they translate her as a raccoon. Going by the coloring, she's technically what they call a tanuki or a raccoon dog in Japan.
Okay.
But Raftalia is everyone's favorite because the thing is that when you're in that, it's basically the Shield Hero is about a particular mindset a guy can get into, where it's the system's against me, no one likes me, everyone just tolerates me at best. I got to be tough and out there. And then you have somebody well, she has to be with me. I bought her. She doesn't count as somebody who cares about me.
Right.
Well, that was just a pet. The pet has to like me. I feed it. That's why they put up with me. Just slowly chipping through his defenses.
Mm-hmm.
And him dealing with his anger about what happened to him. So it's when that show came out, good God, that was controversial.
Yeah, and because there were a lot of certain individuals didn't like the idea that the main character was accused of bad touching, or falsely accused of bad touching.
Right. Yeah. Which I can see that, but on the other hand, it's what else? I think the thing about bad touching is that it's the worst thing you can accuse somebody of, really.
Mm-hmm.
If they do, but it's also so if you're trying to make him just completely ostracized, that's your cheat card.
Yeah, that's the easiest way to do it. Yeah.
Yep. And also, I would call that show an example of if you're catching flack, it means you're over the target.
Mm-hmm.
A show that doesn't have any possibility of meaning something to somebody. There was a show that came out called Redo of a Healer, I think.
Yes. Yeah.
That one is basically, what if Shield Hero, but without the heroism?
Yeah, he's just a asshole.
Yep. As I recall, and doing the second hand dance again.
Mhm.
Ooh, I refuse to watch this show. So it's in the second hand dance.
Yeah.
My understanding of this show is that it's basically this healer guy who was in a party got dicked over by his party, so he got to go back in time with his current power levels,
Mhm.
and he proceeded to get revenge. And by revenge, I mean forcible bad touching.
Yes. Yeah.
And it's like it's like if Naofumi was just a villain without the good traits underneath.
Mhm. Yeah, that's and yeah, I'm with you there. I have no desire to watch that show.
Right. So maybe we're totally wrong. Maybe in the last 13 episodes he realizes what he's done and make amends somehow. I sincerely doubt it, but I have to make that disclaimer.
Yeah, exactly. Yes, maybe he learns his lesson, or somebody teaches him the lesson. Yeah.
Gosh, He-Man! You know, Cringer, today we learned something. Forcible bad touching for the sake of revenge is always wrong. You should use your words and not your...
Oh, jeez. Oh boy.
I need a lot of mind bleach after that one.
Yeah. Oh god.
But yeah, like that's just like I think what this weekend just reminded me is the sheer power that a storyteller can have when they're doing their stuff right. Because even a dumb show about a blonde Conan knockoff with more strength than Superman and a talking cat that he rides around, yeah, who fights a buff skeleton man who likes to who is like the best roast master ever. Yeah, that could be somebody's entire world. That can be what gets them through a day.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's and I said it before. I'll say it again. As creators and as writers, take good care of how of what you do with those characters and what you do with that universe.
Yep. Even if it's your own universe,
Yeah.
think about something that. Just as an example. So we all know the website, the Mary Sue. I doubt that. I've never actually read an article in the Mary Sue.
No, I'm
But you know, it's like they're part of the pipeline that feeds YouTubers content.
yes.
Very nice of them to do that.
Yeah.
But
it's a very, very, very symbiotic relationship. Yeah.
So I feel like people. I feel like people always like are okay with huge sweeping changes to franchises that they don't actually have an investment in. But when their thing comes along, it's like, wait, you can't do that. Because there was some writer on there. I cannot remember her name because, again, don't read it.
Mm-hmm.
But she had been very much in favor of big sweeping changes to the race and gender and sexuality of different characters in different franchises. But then she heard that they were making a TV show where Buffy the Vampire Slayer was black, and suddenly she had an issue with it.
I remember that. Yeah. I remember that very well. Yeah. And she got roasted for it.
Right.
Yeah.
And I'm not going to even get into whether when and how it's okay to race bend, because there are times when it does and doesn't matter to who a character is. But what I think gets overlooked a lot is that people get an attachment to a character as they are. Well, so like, if you said, oh, He-Man, he's a Swahili tribesman from this 19th century who flies to the moon on the back of a lion. Well, then what sense is he He-Man? That's He-Man. That's the guy who taught me how to get out of a house when it catches on fire. And that lying is wrong.
Yeah.
Like, you have attachments to the character, not to the name. Yeah, if you own a so think about how you care about a story. Now imagine if you're a writer and you're writing along and you're writing along and you're writing along and you're writing along, and suddenly you decide, you know what, I'm going to totally screw with the audience.
Yeah.
Oh, what's that? You thought that I was building up to True Love Conquers All? Yeah, and the bride gets hit by a bus on the way out of the cathedral. Nothing matters.
Yeah. Well, that's kind of like the ending of On Her Majesty's Secret Service. Only it wasn't James Bond's new wife didn't get hit by a bus. She got shot up by the bad guy.
Yeah, I've never actually seen that one.
It's I would say I'll say this. I think I found it very overrated.
Which was that, a Dalton one?
No, that was
More?
George Lazenby, and that was the only movie that he played James Bond. Because they brought Sean Connery back right after that.
Poor George. I wonder if it would have gone better if they had given him a better movie.
Well, actually, believe it or not, people liked the movie. The problem was he was an asshole.
On the set.
On the set, yeah. Like everybody hated him. Like Diana Rigg, who was the Bond girl in the movie, she couldn't stand him. Like, yeah, nobody liked him at all.
Well, that's also the importance of if you're in a creative endeavor, don't screw with your castmates.
Yeah, exactly.
You notice how Jared Leto they let Jared Leto come back for the end of the Snyder Cut and then never again.
Right.
And it was the worst part of the Snyder Cut.
Mm-hmm.
It was the part of the Snyder Cut where it's like Bobcat, you were maybe you were too harsh on Zack Snyder. Sure, you didn't really like Batman v Superman that much, but the extended edition was a bit better, and this movie's been pretty good. Maybe you would like to have some more Snyderverse stuff, and then you have that scene with the Joker in the future. It's like,
yeah.
Okay, you know what? Thanks, Zach. You severed the umbilical cord. You got lucky. Get out.
Oh, Hardboiled's not going to be too happy with you.
I've shared this opinion with Hardboiled before. He's allowed to not be happy.
Okay.
I seriously, I was rating that movie about a 7 out of 10, and then that knocked it down to a 6 out of 10. Then I knocked it down to a 5 out of 10 just because I thought about it again a week later. just that individual scene shaved 20% off of that movie's score.
Yeah. Well, I don't think it was needed.
Oh, it was absolutely self-indulgent as heck.
Yeah, it didn't need to be in there. And on top of that, you had, who was married to Jack Sparrow was in that scene.
I can't say I've heard about her. Sorry. But yeah, it's although that movie is a good example of paying things off well.
Right.
Like they established stakes, they developed the characters, and you got a pretty satisfying ending. There are things I can disagree but it didn't screw with us.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, and there's a lot you can do with a lot of you can do in 4 hours.
Mm-hmm. Right.
But I will say, that's you could make the argument, when we were talking about, knowing the characters and figuring out the morality and all that, like Zack Snyder basically took those characters and just turned them on their heads. And
right. They were very different than the classic incarnations.
Oh yeah, especially Superman.
Right.
Yeah. And
we could do a whole stream about that.
Yeah, we could, yeah. But yeah, to kind of bring this all to a close, and I know this video was kind of a little all over the place because as Bobcat said, we didn't plan this one out very well. So
yep. Here's the thing: it's a broad topic, but it's also kind of like if you're watching this as part of the sequence of us talking about things that work with us for writing. This was just kind of important to me to get out there because you realize just how much power you have as a writer.
Yes. And, and of course, as Uncle Ben would say, with great power comes great responsibility.
Yes,
Yeah.
you have the power to make or destroy somebody's whole week.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you loved Snake Eyes and you wanted to go see a Snake Eyes movie about a Snake Eyes that looked like Snake Eyes, by if you were a kid when Snake Eyes first came out, you're probably in your 40s right now. Maybe things have been going great. Maybe you lost your job last year, but darn it, you can go and watch Snake Eyes be cool for a while, and then he doesn't wear a mask and he talks the whole movie.
Yeah. Yeah, it's yeah.
And while neither of us may ever be in a position to get a gig to write somebody else's universe, I think it makes you realize that as funny as you think it might be to, I don't know, kill Orko, because nobody apparently likes Orko, which I don't get, because anybody who liked He-Man I ever talked to liked Orko, but that's neither here nor there.
Yeah.
Maybe just because you don't like a character doesn't mean that you should come into the script and be on the lookout for ways to kill him.
Yeah. Killing Orko is a bit like killing Snarf from Thundercats.
Yeah, Snarf. It's just, why would you do that? It's like, he's the annoying comic relief. He's there as the stand-in for the awkward kids. You just killed the one who made the little boy feel okay, because he wasn't good at things and everybody was always doing cool stuff around him, but he tried.
Yeah. Yeah, jeez.
And if you want to do that, go write Robot Chicken.
Yeah. Yeah. Yes, I'm sure Seth Green would welcome you with open arms.
Yep.
But yeah, so obviously what we're saying here is characters do matter. Whether, even though they might be fictional, they might be two-dimensional, or they might in Bobcat's case have a exist in your mind, your image of them in your mind, but they are still important to people, and always be mindful of that as a creator, and treat the characters within the franchise and the lore with respect, and treat your fans and treat your I would say paying customers with respect.
Yep, because if you take care of them, they will take care of you.
Yes, and that's actually, I would say that's probably a great spot to end that. So thank you all for watching. Really appreciate it. And as always, we'll be back. So quick announcement real quick. So we'll still be here on Tuesdays, but we're going to be starting in an hour earlier. So we're going to be on 8 o'clock, 8 p.m. Eastern.
Yep,
starting
5 p.m. Pacific.
Right, exactly. Yeah. So so with all that said, my name is Daniel Parker, of course, and my guest here,
Darth Bobcat, and and as always, take my book. Take my book.
Yes.
And buy his book. Buy 20.
And buy my book. All right. So before we close it out, I'll give everybody one last look at Angel's Awakening. Good night, everybody.
Good night.
The life of a spy isn't as glamorous as I thought. But it isn't dull.